Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and welcome to my ultimate guide to Jing Yuan. After putting him through his paces, testing him for hours, and doing many spreadsheets, I bring to you guys his best Lightcones, relics, substats, stats, and builds. We'll also go into his Eidolons and ensure you have every single piece of info you need for him to succeed. Jing Yuan is an erudition character and stands at top of his class as the best AoE DPS character in 1.0 without any question. However, he can also bring some pretty modest single target damage to play. However, he should not be compared to hunt characters, as he will not be able to perform in single target as well as them in terms of raw damage output. He is at its strongest when there are 3 or more targets on the field or against bosses that summon adds which need to be slain. As a lightning unit, Jing can satisfy your lightning carry needs and is more than capable of being a solo DPS on any lightning vulnerable fight, meaning that he's a perfect fit if you don't have one already. He does also have strong enough capabilities to fully deal with neutral fights which are not vulnerable to lightning, as long as they suit his combat preferences of 3 targets or more or a boss that summons adds. Let's dive into Jing's kit and get into the nitty gritty so you can truly master the general and know everything you need to know to bring out his true potential. Jing's talent is Prana Extirpated, which summons a Lightning Lord to act alongside him, making him Honkai Star Rail's first dedicated summoning unit. The Lightning Lord is essentially like having a 5th unit on your team, as it acts completely independently of Jing. However, the Lord does inherit every single stat from Jing Yuan, his critical strike rating, multiplier, break effect, and everything else. However, the only thing it doesn't inherit and has of its own is its own speed stat. It also inherits all buffs on Jing Yuan, as well as special buffs like Ting Yun's Benediction buff, which applies lightning damage on hit, meaning you can get a lot of crazy combos going on. The Lightning Lord cannot be targeted by allies or enemies, and the only way to interact with it is by using Jing's skills or buffing Jing as a proxy. The Lightning Lord's base stats are incredibly important, as it is its own unit by its own right. It has a base speed of 60, which is incredibly slow, but it also does hit 3 times. Those 3 hits are based off of Jing's attack, and each hit will be its own instance of damage. You can see here that my Jing Yuan's Lightning Lord hits for 57% per base hit, and of course the Lightning Lord baseline will deal 3 base hits at 60 speed. It's incredibly important to note that each of the base hits the Lightning Lord performs will target enemies at random, meaning you have no control over where most of Jing Yuan's damage is going, as it is up to the will of the Lightning Lord. The Lightning Lord's hits also cleave to nearby enemies, dealing 25% of the damage that's dealt to the primary target. It also deals 0.5 break units of lightning toughness to the primary target exclusively, but doesn't deal any to the adjacent ones. As Jing is a summoner, his companion here won't be able to attack unless he is healthy and able. In the event that Jing dies, the Lightning Lord will be unable to attack until he is back on his feet, and in the event that Jing is incapacitated when it is the Lightning Lord's turn, the Lightning Lord will skip its turn and be kicked back to the start of the turn order. Outside of the Lightning Lord's base stats, Jing Yuan has a lot of tools in his kit to buff the Lightning Lord up and make it stronger. You can actually add additional base hits to the Lord using Jing's skills, ultimate, and technique. Each one of these will add base hits. The skill, for example, adds 2 base hits, meaning your Lightning Lord will have 3 plus 2 and it'll be hitting 5 times instead of 3. The cool thing about extra base hits is that they come with a bit of a bonus. Every base hit that you apply over the initial 3 will also grant the Lightning Lord 10 speed, which will speed it up retroactively. One thing to note about these bonus strikes though, applied by Jing's kit, is that after the Lightning Lord does an attack, it'll revert to its base form of 3 hits as well as 60 speed. So you'll have to rebuff it every single time it attacks. It's also worth noting that the Lightning Lord can only have a maximum of 10 strikes every single action it performs, meaning there is a cap to how powerful it can get per time it strikes. Jing's skill, Rifting Zenith, generates 30 energy, costs 1 skill point, and deals a percentage of his damage to every enemy, and also grants the Lightning Lord 2 bonus strikes. It's worth noting this skill deals 1 break unit of lightning damage, making it an insane clearing ability for damage, but also for breaking in AoE scenarios. Jing's technique, Spirit Invocation, grants the Lightning Lord 3 extra strikes when the battle starts. It's worth noting you can't stack this up multiple times, so you can only activate it once. But this will allow the Lightning Lord to start with 6 bonus strikes instead of 3, and 90 base speed instead of 60, really accelerating Jing's first turn potential. Jing's ultimate Lightbringer is a true AoE damage dealing ability, dealing its full damage unconditionally to everything on the field. It costs 130 energy and deals 2 break units of lightning toughness to every single foe. It also grants the Lightning Lord 3 extra strikes, which of course is incredibly powerful. The special thing about the ultimate though is that it can be used at any time to manipulate how the Lightning Lord can move, so you can use it to add extra stacks at a very specific point, or speed the Lightning Lord up at a very specific point, making it incredibly strong. Jing's bonus abilities are all very powerful. His first bonus ability, Battalion Crush, will grant the Lightning Lord 25% critical strike damage if it has 6 strikes or more. This introduces a playstyle where you always want the Lightning Lord to have 6+ strikes, meaning you want to either use 2 skills every time the Lightning Lord attacks, or you want to use 1 ultimate every single time the Lightning Lord attacks. The name of the game is ensuring that Battalion Crush is always active on the Lightning Lord, and the rotation we discuss will make sure that happens. Jing's second bonus ability, Savant Providence, grants him an extra 15 energy at the start of battle, which is deceptively powerful as it allows him to pull off some truly insane combos on the first turn, making him one of the best opening characters in the entire game for wiping out enemies. Jing's final bonus ability, War Marshal, is one that you're going to get much later on, but will also grant him a pile of critical strike rating unconditionally, which is very important for scaling his damage. In order to get the most out of your Jing, make sure to level up the talent first. It is where the bulk of his damage comes from, and you're going to want to have it maxed out ASAP. Next, level up and prioritize the skill and ultimate equally, but behind the talent. They are both useful on AoE scenarios, but don't contribute too much to his single target damage. Finally, if you have any spare points and resources, which I would be shocked if you did, you can also level up his basic, but you almost will never be using it unless you're playing a very specialized support Jing build, which won't be discussed in this video. For the rest of the traces, unlock Battalion Crush first and start getting all of the critical strike and attack rate traces you possibly can, then unlock Savant Providence next and all of the attack and crit rate traces behind that, and then finally when you do get to the endgame and can unlock it, War Marshal is also fantastic and should be acquired along with the critical strike rating trace behind it. This guide assumes that you're playing Jing as a DPS character, and he only has 1 DPS rotation, and it sees him spamming his skill every single turn. Jing's perfect rotation consists of 4 skills and then an ultimate, which you want to time perfectly to line up with your Lightning Lord. We'll go into that in a second though. So the 4 skills on offer though don't generate him enough energy to get the ultimate on time, so you'll have to fix that up with some external factors. The skill generates 30 energy. If you use it 4 times, you'll have 120 energy, but his ultimate costs 130. You do start the rotation with 5 energy, so you'll have 125 out of 30. You need to make up for that 5 energy in one of the following ways. You can make up for the energy lost with gear by using an energy recharge rope or the sprightly Von Wack planar set. You can also make up for it with another team member using equipment. For example, an abundance character can use an energy recharge Lightcone, which can give you situationally some energy. You can also position him next to the tank so he takes damage and generates energy while in a tanking role. Alternatively, you can slay enemies every rotation, but none of these are particularly consistent or they'll come at the cost of a massive amount of damage. The best way to fix Jing Yuan's energy problems is by putting him in a team with an energy generating character like Jing Yuan, which we'll get to at the end of the video. If you gear and support your Jing correctly, the 4 skill and then ultimate rotation is going to provide the Lightning Lord with enough stacks to consistently be getting off big smashes, which are going to be buffed by that 25% critical strike damage trace that we discussed earlier. It will be an effective rotation that will deal massive AoE and decent single target damage. Let's get into the specifics of how to pull it off and all the intricacies. Before every major battle, make sure that you use Jing's technique. It's incredibly powerful. If you have Jing Yuan in your party, you want to make sure that you use Jing Yuan's technique twice to get her into full energy, and then use Jing Yuan's technique once. When you get into battle, execute the following opener if you have Jing Yuan in your team. Begin spamming the ultimate of Jing Yuan to activate her ultimate before the game starts and combat kicks off. With this ultimate active, use it on Jing Yuan, and then you can use Jing Yuan's ultimate straight away. You'll know why this is powerful after we get to the next part where we talk about manipulating the Lightning Lord, but this is going to give you the best possible start in a battle when you're playing with Jing Yuan. There's two very important things I want to show you guys. First and foremost, it's important to remember that the Lightning Lord inherits all the buffs on Jing. So if we were to buff Jing right now with Jing Yuan, he would gain an additional damage multiplier, and that would be applied to the Lightning Lord who is about to strike. It's important that you time all of your buffs, for example Bronya's ultimate, Jing Yuan's ultimate, or any sort of defense multiplier on the enemy for before the Lightning Lord strikes and not Jing, because most of Jing's damage comes from the Lightning Lord. So you can treat the Lightning Lord as the big nuclear missile that's coming in, and you want to make sure that you buff up Jing right before that missile lands. Let's see that in action. In addition to that, let's remember and also see exactly how to execute, making sure that the Lightning Lord is going to get maximum speed. So you can see here that the Lightning Lord has just had his turn, it's at the baseline 3 stacks and has 167 action value. By timing the ultimate perfectly here, let's see how much extra action value we're going to cut off of that timer here. You can see that it moves up 56 action value just by using the ultimate at the correct time. That's a big deal, and we can continue to scale it very quickly here with the skill, which is going to move it up even more. Assuming you're saving up your ultimate for right after the Lightning Lord smashes to get maximum speed, and you're also building effective teams around Jing and use a suitable build on him, there shouldn't really ever be a case where the Lightning Lord has less than 6 stacks. It might happen infrequently, it might happen in a one-off, but for the most part, the Lightning Lord should always have 6 or more stacks, and that means that we're going to be getting full value from all of Jing's kit and that juicy critical strike damage mentioned earlier. It's important to note that certain supporting characters won't be as synergistic with Jing as they will with other characters due to the way that Lightning Lord works. It's worth noting that, as mentioned earlier, most of Jing's damage comes from the Lightning Lord, and you have to have the Lightning Lord buffed while it is going to strike. A support like Bronya grants a big amount of damage when she uses her skill, which will advance forward a character by 100% and also grant them a damage buff. We can see that in action here. Jing is now going to be having his turn, and it has a big damage buff on him. You can see here that we have 30% and 49% with 1 turn remaining. Now this would be great if we could apply this to the Lightning Lord, because it does most of Jing's damage, but because it's only for 1 turn, Jing's going to use his ability here, and it's going to wear off. So there's literally never going to be a scenario in which we can actually buff the Lightning Lord with Bronya's skill here, which is a bit unfortunate, but that's the way it goes. So it means that there's certain supports that work better with Jing than others. Doesn't mean that Bronya's bad, it just means that Jing Yuan is a little bit more synergistic. Next up, let's cover Jing's best in slot Lightcones, relics, and builds. If you guys are interested in way more detail, theory crafting, and math, I'll link a separate video I did exclusively on Jing and all his options and reasonings down below if you guys want more, but let's get into the results. Jing's best in slot Lightcone at all superimposition levels and levels of investment is Before Dawn. It gives him everything he wants and more, and there's nothing that beats it even at superimposition 1, so if you're interested in investing in Jing, it's by far the best option. I'll flash up a chart here showing all of the damage breakdown so you guys get a good idea of how much better it's better than the competition. The next best option for exclusively free-to-play players is going to be the Seriousness of Breakfast. You can get this to superimposition 5 easily as a free-to-play player over enough time, and it's actually a pretty good option for Jing. It gives him 24% increased damage, but also has an additional effect that grants you increased attack by 8% every single time you slay an enemy when you have it at S5. This can stack up to 3 times. What's cool about this buff though is it's permanent for an entire battle, and in the Ultra Endgame Memory of Chaos, there's a lot of extra monsters that you have to deal with early on in a wave before you get to the big boss, so you'll always have max stacks of this before you get into a big single target scenario, meaning this Lightcone is actually pretty damn competitive, and it's definitely a pretty decent option, especially for free-to-play players. For people looking to invest a little bit more in Jing but not go the full hog, you do also have the options of Today is Another Peaceful Day, which you can acquire from the Battle Pass at superimposition 1. Now, superimposition 1, Today is Another Peaceful Day, isn't as good as superimposition 5, Breakfast, but it is definitely not a bad option if you don't have superimposition 5 of Breakfast just yet. But you do have another option here, because you can take this Battle Pass Lightcone over the months up to superimposition 5 as well, to a point at which it would actually beat out the Breakfast Lightcone. If you want to do a long-term plan for Jing, this can be a good Lightcone to build up over time, but just know that the free-to-play option will beat it out at the beginning until you get this to a higher superimposition superposition level. Finally, if you do have Birth of the Self, it can be a pretty good option as well for single target. It increases the follow-up attack damage of Jing by a substantial amount. But this is only a good option on single target, because once you get into AoE, his skill and ultimate start to do quite a lot of damage. But the Birth of the Self only buffs up follow-up attack damage, meaning it's not going to be as strong in AoE scenarios as generic increases to Jing. TLDR, his Lightcone signature is his best by far, but there is a really good option in Seriousness of Breakfast for free-to-play players. If you want to invest in the long term, pick up multiple battle passes of Today is Another Peaceful Day, and it'll eventually beat it out. If you got really lucky and have a super high superimposition level of the Birth of the Self, you can also use that over Breakfast as well as Today is Another Peaceful Day. Other Lightcones that we haven't discussed here do have merit but aren't as strong as the options we've presented. Specifically, Night on the Milky Way is only good in AoE scenarios but falls behind in single target ones. I would recommend going with the ones that we've just discussed. When it comes to Jing's build, there are two ones to choose from. There is the speed build, which utilizes speed to get more Lightning Lord stacks, more break, and smoother rotations, as well as a little bit of an edge in Memory of Chaos. Then there is the attack build, which is significantly easier to gear up, also a little bit safer in terms of skill point management, and also synergizes with a larger, wide array of supports like Bronya and Asta. When choosing between the two, I'd recommend the attack build for most players, as it's much easier to acquire relics for and complete his set bonuses for, and you can overall have a little bit of an easier time with your team's skill point management. If you're interested in really pushing Jing to the limit though, speed can be an option, but it is very hard to get the amount of speed you need for him to be at his full potential. And it also does limit your options in terms of skill points on your team, as well as how you build your teams and what supports you can use. Overall, speed is for advanced players and attack is probably best for most people. But if you are going for speed, you want to have 130 to 140 speed on Jing, and if I could pick a specific number, I'd recommend getting exactly 134. I'll personally be running speed on my Jing as I really like the rotation and how it goes with speed, but it's definitely not easy to acquire the amount you need, so definitely build up to it if you do plan to go for the super optimized build for Jing and his relics. When considering relic sets for Jing, the Band of Sizzling Thunder is the best in slot option for him, assuming that you could get all the substats and main stats you want. However, that's not a reality, so you can also use a 4-piece or 2-piece Musketeer of Wildwheat. This is a really good starter set which is generic for everybody, and I'm sure some of us and most of us have a pretty good set of this which we could use on Jing. It's also worth noting that the Musketeer of Wildwheat gives a pretty good amount of speed, which will help you hit that 134 speed breakpoint if you're interested in pursuing that playstyle. Now, if you're in between farming, you can also mix and match these sets and use a 2-piece Musketeer of Wildwheat and a 2-piece Band of Sizzling Thunder, which will unlock a lot of the power from the Band of Sizzling Thunder 4-piece. So you can do 3 different options: 4-piece Wildwheat, 4-piece Band of Sizzling Thunder, or 2-piece Musket and 2-piece Band. But also, definitely try and prioritize your main stats on Jing first and foremost, and then move on to trying to complete the sets. For your planar set, when you're playing attack-based Jing, you only have one option, and that is the Inner Salsado. It is by far the best, and it's going to give you the most damage. When you're playing speed Jing though, you have 2 options. You can either use the Inner Salsado, or you can use the Space Sealing Station. They are almost identical in the amount of damage they give Jing, so you can use either one of them. If you're curious, the Inner Salsado wins out by about 0.5% in endgame gear and an endgame setup for the speed build. It is worth noting, if you did want to fix Jing's energy problems with a piece of gear, you could also use a 2-piece Sprightly Von Wag. However, that's not recommended. I would go with using Ting Yun instead to solve that problem. Jing's best in slot relic stats are going to be as follows for the main stats. If you're playing speed build, you have to have speed on the boots. If you're playing attack, play attack on the boots. For his chest piece, you want critical strike rate. If you can't get critical strike rate though, you can use critical strike damage. It's about equivalent if you're using one of the 4-star Lightcones, but as soon as you start using his signature, critical strike rating is substantially better. If you don't have either of those, you can use attack in the midterm. For your planisphere, you're going to want lightning damage boost for sure. And for the link rope, you're going to want attack percentage. If you're looking to solve his energy problems with a piece of gear though, you can also use energy recharge, but that is not recommended. When looking for substats, look for critical strike rating, critical strike damage, and attack percentage. We're going to talk a little bit more about crit in a second here, but if you are playing the speed build Jing, speed is the highest priority above all 3 of those. You're looking for a bit of speed to get up to 134 breakpoint. Once you're there though, you don't need any more after that, as a lot of the benefit has already been gained. So try and stick around the 134 or a little bit higher mark if you're playing the speed build though. If you're playing the attack build, stick to those 3. You can pick up a few speed substats to give him a little bit more of of an edge, but overall it's not needed. When gearing up for crit though, there is a bit of a rule of thumb here with Jing. You can take whatever your critical strike damage is and add 25% to it. So for me, that would be roughly 150. And then you can divide that number by 2, which would give us 75, and that's about how much critical strike rating you should be aiming for. So right now, I don't have enough critical strike rating on my Jing to fully unlock his potential, so the substat I'm looking for right now is actually going to be critical strike rating. Of course, don't forget that critical strike rating can't go higher than 100%, and you're also going to be getting 10% from War Marshal, so you're looking for 90% as an absolute maximum. Alright, into Jing's Eidolons for those looking to invest. It's worth noting that all the numbers here mentioned are going to be increases over the previous Eidolon. Jing is more than capable of smashing all of his enemies with his giant lightning lord at Eidolon 0, but if you're interested in investing in him more, I would recommend only picking up his Eidolon 1 as it is the most impactful. But let's go over all the Eidolons and understand their value. Jing's Eidolon 1 here is going to grant him 25% extra bonus damage on his lightning lord cleaves. This essentially takes the 25% damage multiplier to the adjacent enemies to a 50%, which is a pretty decent damage boost. It's a 13% more damage boost on AoE in 3 target fights if you're using the Seriousness of Breakfast at Super Position 5, so it's a pretty big damage bump, but only for AoE, it's not going to affect single target. Eidolon 2 increases the damage of his basic attack, skill, and ultimate pretty much permanently in battles after the first Lightning Lord smash. Now this actually only works out to be 4.4% more damage in AoE, 3 targets, and roughly 3% more damage on single target with the same setup as Eidolon 1. Jing's Eidolon 3 increases the damage of his ultimate, which works out to be less than 1% more damage in single target and a little bit more than 1% damage in AoE. Jing's Eidolon 4 is actually a pretty big deal. It grants him energy regeneration rate every single time the Lightning Lord strikes, which means that his energy problems are pretty much completely fixed and he can perform his rotation without any assistance from gear or supports. In addition to that, if you have the Lightning Lord striking many times, you can actually skip an entire skill on your rotation and go from a 4 skill rotation down to a 3 skill rotation. This doesn't really result in consistent gameplay though, and it isn't going to be a big damage increase even when it does happen. Treat this Eidolon as a quality of life one, which fixes up Jing's energy problems. Jing's Eidolon 5 is the chunky one, increasing his skill and talent damage, meaning the Lightning Lord, by a substantial amount. It equates to about 8.2% more damage in AoE scenarios, and roughly 8.7% more damage in single target scenarios. Jing's Eidolon 6 adds a special vulnerable state to enemies being attacked by the Lightning Lord, but only while the Lightning Lord is striking them, which encourages a higher stack count playstyle, but is also going to increase Jing's damage substantially. If you play Jing effectively with a speed build, it equates to roughly 15% more damage on AoE and 18.7% more damage on single target, making it his strongest Eidolon, which is expected for Eidolon 6. Alright, finally, let's cover some of the best ways to build teams around Jing. So most teams are going to want to contain 2 skill point generators and or sustaining units. So you can see here we got Natasha, who's handling the healing, and a fireman character who's handling the tanking and the shielding. If you want to go for a more offensive setup, you can trade out the tank for another damaging supporting unit who is capable of generating skill points for Jing and the rest of the team. So we got 2 setups here, which you can emulate on your teams, and you can swap units in and out as you see fit. Now as for the main cast here, we've got Jing himself. He's got a few problems that he wants to solve, and he'd love for his support that he's bringing to solve those issues for him. The best and easiest support to pair with him, who really does fix a lot of his issues and provide him a lot of quality of life, is Ting Yuan. She is capable of giving him the energy he needs, and all of her buffs are going to last more than 1 turn, meaning that she can give them all to the Lightning Lord without issue. In addition to that, she is also lightning, so she is capable of running a special light cone, which is going to boost up Jing's Lightning Lord damage even more. She is also capable of running the Dance light cone, which is going to allow Jing to be able to get his speed version online easier and not need as much speed either. You could probably run 130 or 131 speed instead of 134 if you're using that light cone. A couple other options for Jing are running him with the likes of Bronya, but remember that she won't be able to fix his energy issues. She also can't run a supportive light cone as she needs the energy for herself, and her skill also won't apply to the Lightning Lord. So you're going to have to use her pretty specially and pretty effectively to make up for what Ting Yuan is not bringing anymore. Another option here is Asta, and she will be able to provide speed, which Jing would love to have, and it will mean you can run attacks Jing at a very high speed value without having to invest in any speed, which could be a pretty powerful combo if you can bring that online consistently. You can also run another Nihility character like Pella, or another DPS, which is able to run skill point neutral if you're interested, but I do believe that the way to go right now at least is by running a Harmony character like Ting Yun, Bronya, or like Asta. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my Jing Yuan guide and you learned something new. If you did, make sure to thumbs up the video as it would really help me out. And of course, if you do enjoy the content and you want to see more, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you have any feedback, definitely leave that down below for me as well. And until next time, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Cheers.